So I've got this awful habit of replaying games like Dragon Age because I miss the talky bits. I miss meeting new characters, figuring out what their deal is, and then using my super cool talkie skills to advance the story. But let's be honest, the new Dragon Ages, Fallouts, and Mass Effects RP&Ps don't have as many options for the role-playing aspects of the talkie bits. Yes, in Dragon Age you can still play an elf that speaks in Elven so they can prove that they have pointy ears, but over the years, the knowledge and charisma perks have been smoothed over. It feels less like you're role-playing as a character and more like you can unlock all the skills to be the plus 100 charisma magnet that you want to be. The Council is an indie game released in chapters that tries to infuse old role-playing mechanics into a shiny new video game. It understands the most crucial key to role-playing: failure. You don't walk into New Vegas as a character with the intelligence of -20 because you want to pass a pop quiz. You do it because you want your character to think the phrase "snakes in the grass" is literal. Role-playing at its finest allows failure to be informative. It tells you how another character reacts to your imperfections and points on how to avoid them next time. It allows failure to be entertaining because when was the last time you flubbed your way through a conversation with Napoleon?
Of course, but I need to know if I can count you among my allies.
Well, of course.
And for that, I have a little question for you. The agreement stipulates an aid of 50,000 louis d'or for 200 cannon.
I don't know. Maybe you ought to speak to my mother.
And I think failure can give agency. You're choosing to not be a perfect, godlike superhero. You're a hard-boiled detective with bad social skills. You're a politician who couldn't tell the difference between a bloodstain and spilled maple syrup. You're a wackadoodle occult historian who would rather talk about ancient artifacts than what's for breakfast. So yeah, those 3 examples are all skill trees in the Council. Each have their own set of perks that you can level up with experience. And if you happen to be a diplomat that rushes to the door when George Washington knocks at 1 a.m., you can naturally gain an athletic skill that otherwise wouldn't be in your tree. You can also fudge some perks with the help of books collected. This allows a limited amount of wiggle room so you aren't completely forced to stick to your tree. I think this helps the role-playing aspect of the game, since if the Council had forced you to stay within your skill tree, you'd feel stuck in a box you didn't want to be put in. For my first playthrough, I had picked the diplomat skill tree. This meant I knew about politics or whatever, but I couldn't pick a lock, I couldn't identify really obvious stains, and I didn't know a spell from a hex. At one point, I had to investigate around a room for traces of my lost mother, but I couldn't make heads or tails of my investigation. I weirdly wasn't frustrated by this at all. I was more amused by the fact that I just couldn't go do things in a game because that's how role-playing works. I don't have any of these skills. This is exciting. I am the most useless son in the history of being useless. It was genuinely refreshing to not be a superhero like Commander Shepard. It made me take the conversations more seriously, and it made me give a shit about the lore and scrutinize the world around me. Besides skill trees, there's also consumables that can help you muscle through difficult conversations. These are mainly useful during game battles, and no, don't worry, they aren't QuickTime events or minigames. They're just heightened conversations that you can either pass or fail depending on what you say. The consumables can give you points towards saying something smart, let you see your opponent's weaknesses, or take away whatever ailments you might be feeling at the time. For example, if the conversation is happening late at night, you might be exhausted from your long day and unable to be the witty gentleman that you are after a full night's worth of sleep. A consumable can temporarily give you a pep in your step to get through a battle. But of course, if you overdo it with the consumables, you can become intoxicated and things just kind of go downhill from there, like in real life. The conversation battles are intense and a lot of fun. If you win, you feel like a badass. Not because you're super great at everything, but because you use your limited amount of skills to convince someone to see things your way.
I swear by the Almighty God to honor the promise that no one but my mother shall cast her gaze upon your letter.
Good. Listen, let's stop there. I'm going to tell you a secret, Monsieur Delice.
So let's talk about the plot. Our main character is like if Guybrush Threepwood joined an occult secret society. Did he ever do that? I think he might have. Anyway, He's affable, inoffensive, and easy to play as the protagonist. His mother, who was a prolific member of the society, goes missing while visiting a mysterious manor sitting on top of a rocky island. Your character is invited to the manor by the Lord Mortimer, and while socializing with society's elite, you find out what happened to your mother. The story has many obvious branches, and the game even takes a moment to point where you could go next time you play. This enhanced the replay value of the game, not to mention there's secrets hidden in the very beginning that you don't find until later. The game grants you strange dreams that help point you in the right direction. There's a lot of strange intrigue and high stakes to distract you from your goal, but perhaps it all points to the same truth. I say perhaps because this game is being released in chapters, and so far only the first chapter is out. I usually don't like to recommend games without playing the whole thing or close to it, but the Council is such a unique experience, I really believe it's worth checking out. If you find yourself begrudgingly firing up the Normandy because you want to have a chat with an interesting character, or if you like role-playing through your personality and conversations, this game will probably be for you too. If you're not sold, you can also check out my 2 videos I made on the game, popping up right now.